Did you know that poor leadership is the number one reason why people quit their jobs? No surprise, right? The managers that make us go like WTF or like cringe or bombastic side eye. Many of us end up stuck with horrible bosses, and in a lot of cases, because of financial situations, we are stuck there, right? And we can't just up and quit, at least not right away. And so, what can we actually do to deal with these not so great people managers? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Thank you for asking, right? In this episode of DEI in 5, I want to share 5 strategies for you to consider when you find yourself dealing with a not so great boss. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Adriele. I am a diversity, equity, inclusion thought partner with over 15 years of professional experience, although I've had way more experience in DEI than I was even aware of up until recently because I was doing it throughout my childhood, but that's another story. For those of you that have been here before, welcome back. Thank you for the support. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this content. I spend a lot of time talking to leaders about how to be better people managers. But today I want to focus on individual contributors. I want to focus more specifically on those of you who are dealing with less than ideal bosses. Like I said, the ones that make you make all the faces, that make you give them that bombastic side eye. But whether it is micromanagement or perhaps you are misaligned with your manager on your goals or expectations are unclear from both sides, or maybe you've experienced frequent microaggressions, unfortunately, or even blatant, egregious forms of disrespect and discrimination, whatever it may be, these are 5 strategies for you to consider when you are trying to manage your manager. So let's get into it. All right, so number 1. Know thyself. No, I know it sounds silly, but seriously, knowing who you are is so important. It will allow you to have easier conversations with your manager and with your team members, or anyone for that matter, because you will be able to better articulate what it is that you need, what you don't need, etc. So when I say know thyself, consider doing frequent self-assessments and setting boundaries. So when I say self-assessments, I'm talking about really taking time to understand who you are. What is your personality type? What is your communication style? Are you more introverted? Are you more extroverted? Are you somewhere in between? How do you like to communicate with other people? Are you more of a talker? Do you prefer to write things down or type things out? Thinking about things like, how do you like to give and receive feedback? Feedback is a gift. I stand by that. Feedback can help us improve who we are, both professionally and personally. Thinking about things also like your work preferences and what you prefer in terms of your work setting, right? Do you like to be in collaborative, open office environments where you can frequently talk to people? Or do you prefer to be in a quiet space, to have your own office, or even to work from home? What else? Values, right? What are your values? And know that sometimes that may shift. So you have to constantly be running these self assessments with yourself. Like, as your goals shift in life, because life is never just this linear thing, your values may shift, and the way you prioritize things may shift. And so checking in with yourself does not hurt. Thinking about things that motivate you. What gets you excited? What ticks you off? What pisses you off? What makes you just what makes your skin crawl when you have to do it? Like, is it the busy work that you can't stand, but you love the creative work and you're like in a state of flow when you're working on a specific project? Reflect on all of those things. Know who you are. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I'm going to keep going, right? Shameless plug, the Black Healing Journal, designed specifically for Black folks, especially working in professional spaces. This is a daily journal that I created to help you just self-reflect and become more introspective and to understand your needs. You'll see there are daily pages and prompts. There's also a section early on in the beginning where you can write some monthly prompts and do check-ins with yourself. But truly an excellent resource for you to Check in with yourself every day. It's designed to take 5 minutes or less. And then you can even flip back and look at previous dates to see how you've progressed and how you are changing and evolving as a person. So I'll add the link below, obviously, but self-reflection and self-assessment is so important and so necessary as you are defining and sort of chipping away at your goals. I often like to stand by the quote that says, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I truly believe that. Like, I've set so many goals for myself, and whenever I didn't have a plan and a timeline for them, they just didn't get done, or I forgot about them, or just deprioritized them. But when you have a plan, you can check stuff off your list, right? The other thing that I'll mention before we move on to our second point is boundaries. So know your boundaries. Setting boundaries is an act of self-care, right? So clearly define what you are willing to do or accept and what you're not willing to do or accept. And that will make it easier for you to communicate that to other people when you yourself are aware. All right, step 2. So number 2, have a conversation with your manager. And before I get into some details on this one, I'm going to preface it by saying, if you are in a position currently where you do not feel comfortable or safe speaking to your manager, hold off on this one. Pause. You're going to want to listen to the next step, but do not proceed on speaking to your manager if you do not feel comfortable or safe. The safety piece is so important. And by that, I mean, if you're not feeling psychologically safe, if you don't feel like you're going to be able to talk to them and voice your opinions without them shutting you down or even trying to retaliate against you, hit pause on this suggestion, this strategy. But for those of you that are, I want to share a few steps before we move on, right? A lot of times, one of the biggest things I've noticed as I've coached and advised leaders and people managers is that they often fail to set expectations for the people that they are leading. So you start a new job, you hop right in, and they're like, oh, I want you to do this, 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 and this. But there are no expectations that are set ahead of them starting to assign things to you. And then they come back to you and they're like, well, you didn't do this, or we expected this. Well, but you never told me what was expected up front, right? So if that hasn't happened, if you have not had a chance to set expectations with your manager and they haven't initiated it, here's a good opportunity for you to really manage up and make a suggestion that you two come together. It may take a couple of meetings, but set expectations. What is your role? What are your responsibilities? And vice versa. What should you expect from them as a leader as well? This is also a good opportunity to align on how you two like to communicate. So again, being aware of your communication style, how you like to give and receive feedback, and take some time to learn about theirs as well, so that you can create a little bit more harmony there as you go along. So step number 3, and this is, again, if you had to skip step 2, or suggestion number 2, these are all suggestions, take it with a grain of salt. But if you are not comfortable, or if you don't feel safe approaching your boss to have a conversation, you really want to make sure that you are seeking support from other people. So this might be HR or a higher level person in the organization, someone above your manager or your boss. And I know historically HR has been viewed, for a lot of folks, myself included in some situations, I viewed HR as a person or a team that exists to protect the organization and not the people, right? But in a lot of situations, HR is often our best choice because they really are, or should be, serving as sort of a neutral third party, supporting individuals and people who are contributing to an organization. So if you can, and if you feel comfortable, consider inviting HR into whatever is going on to get their support. If you don't trust HR or your senior leaders, then you are probably going to have to look externally. That might look like seeking out a legal professional, or depending on how bad it is, and if you just don't have the energy, and if you're at your wit's end, it might be time to consider throwing in the towel and leaving the company. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few. In addition to HR, when it comes to just getting support from other people, you may want to also consider allies, right? And I don't know about you, but I am so tired of hearing allies and allyship and allies. But I don't have another word for seeking out people who can support you, right? So having, whether it's peers, colleagues, other managers or leaders within the organization who can offer guidance and support to you can go a long way, right? You always need people to advocate for you. You need people that are going to be able to confirm and validate who you are, your experience, etc. That is always, always a good idea. All right, strategy number 4, keep receipts. Document, document, document. Whenever possible, if you are having a meeting with your manager, ask them if they would be okay with you recording it. It can just be auto. It can just be audio, like using a AI transcriber like otter.ai. Does not hurt, but caution, be mindful of recording people without their permission, because number 1, it can cause additional friction. And number 2, there are some laws that prohibit it. So be sure to check your local laws should you consider recording people without asking. And then when it comes to your emails or any sort of messages that you're sending, make sure that you keep a copy for yourself outside of your professional emails. And also, if whenever you can, after you've had a meeting or a discussion with your manager, go back and just reiterate everything that you discussed, either in an email, Slack message, whatever medium you use, and ask them to reply back and confirm that you are aligned. And again, keep a copy of it, because you never know. You never know. Especially if things are really bad, you might even want to CC HR or, again, your manager's manager, so that they are aware of what is going on, because you never know. But receipts, document, document, document. Of course, check in to see what the policies are internally, because sometimes organizations have policies about downloading and saving copies of things like emails, but whenever possible, try to keep those receipts. Last but not least, step 5. I keep saying step, but these are all strategies, suggestions. Suggestion number 5 is to prioritize self-care, which might include preparing an exit strategy. So we already talked about, when it comes to self-care, we already talked about setting boundaries. So you want to be clear on what your boundaries are. You want to try, if you can, if you feel safe, if you feel comfortable sharing those boundaries with your manager and other leaders that you're involved with. And we also talked about allyship, having a strong support network. So that could be allies, but it could also be just building your network of peers as well, be either internally within their organization or externally as well. Consider any professional groups that you might join, online communities, whatever it is that creates and fosters a safe space for you to share experiences and to also get advice from other people. Now, this last piece that I'm going to touch on, the exit strategy, right? When circumstances are to a point where you're done. You've thrown the towel in. You might be already quiet quitting. You are doing the bare minimum at work. You are taking as much time off as possible because you don't like to show up. You are constantly off camera because you don't want to deal with whatever it is, right? It might be time to figure out what your next move is. And so always assess your current situation financially, mentally. Are you in a good place to move on? Is it feasible? And then do all the things that you need to do to make that next step happen, whether that is updating your resume, which I don't even know why we're still using traditional resumes at this point, but that's a whole other conversation. But whether it's updating your resume, your portfolio, if you have one, your LinkedIn profile, if it is networking more, if it's exploring other opportunities that align with your goals, whatever that is, figure out that plan. Know that we, especially as individual contributors within an organization, cannot fix everything, especially those of us that belong to less represented identities within a workplace. It's exhausting. We all know, right? And if you've been trying for some time to be heard or to be respected or to have your work or even your thoughts or ideas valued, you might be tired. And it's important to remember and to remind yourself that there are better working environments out there. Not perfect ones, but there's always a better option out there for you. So that's it. Those are my 5 strategies or suggestions for how to manage up and how to navigate dealing with a shitty boss. Like, that's what they are, right? I hate to say it, but And the hope is that it's not all on you, right? Ideally, an organization should be investing in leadership development, and they should be working to create an inclusive, equitable environment. But as we know, that typically does not happen, and it certainly doesn't happen overnight. It is a journey. And so sometimes, more often than not, we have to advocate for ourselves. We have to speak up, which can be difficult. It can be exhausting. But hopefully these strategies that I shared today are helpful. If you only take one thing away from today, please, if you're not already doing it, work on that self-reflection piece. It can be so insightful to understand who you are, how you became to be, where you're trying to go. Get to know you. Don't be afraid of you, because then you can be a better advocate for yourself. Then you can speak up more for yourself, and live the life that you want. So, and again, shameless plug, the Black Healing Journal. If you are interested, link is in the bio. If you have questions, thoughts, let me know. And yeah, be sure to, as always, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll be back here soon for another episode of DEI in 5. Until next time, y'all. Bye.